there's this need of having more conscious leaders that are more aware of what their employees need every single day, and what kind of leadership they put out there, right? So I think that unless the future of this workplace is being led by really conscious leaders that are actually making sure that the number one goal of the organization is that all their employees are super excited and enthusiastic about accomplishing their goals. These organizations have their days counted.
Hello and welcome to Hitting the Wall podcast with me, your host, Ash Taylor. Hope everybody is well today. I'm joined by the great guy who I've never met before, which always really excites me, 𝐞𝐥𝐞𝐫, the CEO Confidant. How are you, sir?
Thank you. Very well. I'm very well. Thank you for having me in your show. And obviously, thank you everybody who's listening or watching us today.
Yeah, this is brilliant. So as I said, I love meeting new people. I love having a chance to chat to them and find out, who they are, where they come from, their values, some of the stuff they've been through. So just to kick off, Angel, what do you do, and what's the change you're trying to make in the world?
Thank you. That's a great question. Actually, those two questions typically are not always the same. They not always have the same answer. But I like to, let's say that the unwritten bio of 𝐞𝐥𝐞𝐫 would say that I am the connector of the unconnected. I really like to be the connector of the unconnected. And with what I do in my life, basically I do two very distinct things. One is helping both corporate CEOs and accomplished entrepreneurs to bridge the gap globally for expansion and exposure as a way to accelerate the growth of their businesses. I do that, and that's why my brand is the CEO Confidant. I do that because throughout my career, my corporate career, first in Europe, then in Latin America, then in North America, I helped more than 1,500 CEOs with the challenges that they had in their businesses. So when I started my own business 5 years ago, I decided to count my blessings and come up with maybe, a brand that would really, incorporate all those companies I had worked with in so many different countries, in more than 33 countries, actually. So my life has always been an international life, an international career. And the other side of my life, and then you will even more understand why I'm the connector of the unconnected, is because I decided to launch in 2017, along with two friends of mine. We decided to launch Wisdom for Kids, which is a non-profit organization. It's a foundation, international foundation. And what we do is we help underprivileged kids in Latin America become entrepreneurs using the local resources. That's why I consider myself to be the connector of the unconnected. And also, right now it's May 2021. Obviously, everybody knows what's happened in the world for the last 14, 15 months, right? I think that a lot of people have lost the connection with the rest of the world, with the rest of the people around them. That's why I think that my mission cannot be more current, really.
Yeah.
Because I think that we all need to really recover, recuperate, from those lost connections that unfortunately happened last year. Regardless of where you stand, I'm not here to judge anybody. I think that we have to respect everyone, and we have to be building bridges and rebuilding bridges more than ever before. Ash.
I absolutely love listening to what you've just said, because I think you've massively recognized something that we all need to be doing. I was speaking to a friend of mine last week and talking about, not the friendships that I've lost, but that I do feel disconnected from so many people. And so many things, there are things that I've taken for granted all my life, and now I'm not attached to them. You suddenly go, oh, wow. Things like going to football on a Saturday afternoon with my mates, and you take it for granted, and I miss it so much. And I want that reconnection of being in the crowd and being with strangers who are part of my family again. And it's things like that. And then from a business perspective as well, just going out and chatting to people and meeting new people all the time. This is great. There's no way that this year this year, for instance, has meant you and I have got to met.
Mm-hmm.
And I think without it, it probably wouldn't have happened. So that's great, but it's not a true connection in that we can't shake hands, can we? And we can't, share some food and eat paella together and stuff. You know what I mean? So I think
Exactly.
You are spot on. So tell me, let's get right into this. So you said, you've helped hundreds, if not thousands, of CEOs all around the world, 33 different countries. What are the common mistakes that you see CEOs making when they're trying to scale, whether it's internationally or nationally? But what are the challenges that you see CEOs making consistently that you find yourself going, oh, another one, kind of thing?
Well, I mean, I'm going to answer your question from an organizational perspective and also from a personal perspective.
Sure.
And I think that from a personal perspective, the number one, if I can call it blind spot, is maybe not asking for help enough. I think that we all need an outside pair of eyes looking inside of our lives, inside of ourselves, and just giving us another clue, another hint, another cue, maybe something that we cannot see, because we really cannot see everything. We are so, I like to say very often that we cannot see, none of us can see our own belly button, even if we look at the mirror, because there's so many things that we go through and we are distracted. We're continuously distracted. That's why it's so important to find peace and to find introspection and to trying to go back to the flow of life. It's funny how yesterday, I think that the timing for every interview is always divine, to be honest. It's always godly. And I think that yesterday I was reading a book, I was finishing to read a book. The book is called Levels of Energy. And the passage I was reading was about actually another piece of this gentleman, this author, his name is Frederick Dodson. And he was explaining how life is like a stream and how we put ourselves continuously on places in which we row against the stream.
Mm-hmm.
We have a pair of oars, right? But we don't necessarily use them to take us to the place where we eventually have to be, or have to eventually, become, or who we have to become. So I think that's the first blind spot. I would say that the CEOs, I always very, very often see, it's not easy for them either to find the time or to acknowledge that they need outside help. That would be the first one. And the second one, organizationally wise, that's like all over the place. And I mean, you see that so often. And all the statistics that you read about workforce not engaged, disengagement of the workforce today speaks to that, like yells at that, which is their teams, the team of the CEO. There's this big gap between what the CEO and the leadership team of the company wants the rest of business operators to do. Typically, the CEO and the board are very aligned, but what happens when the CEO sits down with the rest of the C-suite, because obviously he or she wants the rest of the organization to perform certain tasks, right? To add certain value to the market, right? That's the end goal of any organization, to put this value proposition in front of a lot of people, so that it's value that is being added to the lives of those clients or business partners or suppliers, right? So in that area, the team is not always taken as the number one priority. And if you as a CEO, you want to keep your teams accountable, you really have to make sure that there's no gap between what you do and what your C-suite or leadership team does, and what the rest of the business operators. The lower you go in the organizational chart, the larger the gaps are. And in order to have those employees or those business operators engaged, you have to make sure that you give them the right, training. You have to give them the right way to behave, the right incentives. I mean, HR has to stop being only the go-to department to solve issues. It has to be really, it should be, I think, according to my humble opinion and experience, it should be more the gap bridging part of the organization. HR should be always bridging those gaps that I just described, the gaps between the C-suite and all the business operators and employees, and the gap between the CEO and the leadership team. Those are basically the blind spots that I see continuously in the world of in the workforce today.
Interesting, really interesting. So there's a couple of places I want to go with this, and the first is a story that I'm sure people have heard before, but I'll say it again because I think it will give context to my question. And so if you can picture this very dry, dusty, maybe desert, and there's a little road going through the desert, and there's this guy walking along the road, and he hears this tapping noise, and he comes across this man on the side of the road, and he's got this real scowl on his face, and he's got this kind of hood over his head, and he's got a hammer in one hand and a chisel in the other, and he's sort of tapping away at this hammer against this big block of limestone. He's tapping and he's tapping and he's tapping. And the guy stops him and says, excuse me, sorry to interrupt your work, but what are you doing? And the guy says, oh, I've got to sit here day after day after day, chiseling away at this block of stone, and it's hot and I'm thirsty and I'm hungry. And the guy's like, oh, okay. So, okay, interesting. You carry on. And he walks on down the road for another mile or so, and he comes across another guy who's whistling this merry tune, and he's got his hood on, and he's got a big smile on his face, and he's got a hammer in one hand and a chisel in the other. And as he's whistling, he's tapping here and he's tapping there. And the guy says, really sorry to interrupt you, but what are you doing? And he looks back at it, and the guy looks at him and smiles with a big smile, and he says, why? I'm building a temple. And both people are doing exactly the same job. Exactly the same job. So how do you get people within your organization to recognize they are part of something bigger, that they are building the temple, rather than being isolated and just chiseling away at their own job where nobody notices what they do and no one, or they don't feel value? How do you, I know you talked about HR, but I think there's more to it than that in terms of leadership and culture. How do you bridge the gap between what, those whose business it is know what they want, and the people within the business? Yeah,
no, I mentioned HR because it's kind of what it should be, right? I mean, what the name of the function has and what it really is. I definitely think that they could be good champions to accomplish what I'm going to say, but I agree with you. It's not an HR issue, but HR should be the champions of deploying this. And it's definitely a matter of, number one, does the leader of the organization really want the rest of the organization to be completely part of the company's mission? Yes or no? What is that leader willing to put out there so that everybody knows what the real intentions of the organization are? The communication, the information that flows, the way this information is being communicated to the rest of the employees of the organization. All those things are extremely important, but at the end of the day, it also depends on, I personally believe that it depends on the conscience of the leader. Okay, so that's why more and more, it's funny how since I started my own journey 5 years ago until today, I consistently see that there's this need of having more conscious leaders that are more aware of what their employees need every single day, and what kind of leadership they put out there, right? So I think that unless the future of this workplace is being led by really conscious leaders that are actually making sure that the number one goal of the organization is that all their employees are super excited and enthusiastic about accomplishing their goals. These organizations have their days counted. I really believe so. I really think so. So it's a matter of the style of leadership of the leader and the rest of the organization. I think that we have to become, I think that the younger generations are more picky, right? Are not like,
yeah, sure.
You have probably, you still know people that have been in organizations for 20 plus years, right?
Yeah, sure.
That's impossible today. I mean,
yeah,
the kids, I mean, let's say, well, not the kids, but let's say let's say up to 30 years old right now, they can easily be this kind of people that really, if they don't like it, what they see in the organization, or if they don't feel involved, if they don't think that they're really part of a big, you know, of a bigger plan than themselves, even than their organization, they're going to leave. So I think that this is going to change the corporate world, and it's going to change the world in general, the world of business, more and more and more often. There has to be a mission. There has to be an end goal, and that end goal has to be related to making the world a better place. It has to be related to leaving a legacy. Those kind of things were not as relevant before as they are today. But it's funny because very often, Ash, people ask me, how do you pick your clients? Do you prefer to work with retail, oil and gas, high tech? You know, what are your preferred customers? What's your ideal profile? And I always say the same thing. And it's proven true more and more and more often, which is, I don't pick the industry, I pick the leader of the organization, either an accomplished entrepreneur or a corporate CEO. It doesn't matter. And I always look for three traits. Number one, does that person really want to change? Number two, do they really want to leave a legacy? Number three, do they really want to change the world? You know, those three things. And if those three things are not there, regardless of, you know, the kind of relation, the business model, the return or the fee, it doesn't matter. You know, life is too short to be with the wrong people, as I said before the conversation, right?
We said we should bring that in.
Exactly. So I think that's extremely important. We have to pick the people that we work with. So I've been able to develop quite an outreach on social media, but that's only worth the amount of you know, relationships and I would say value that is behind those relationships, right? And I feel myself really that everything I have developed was there or is there only to be able to benefit all the people I work with. You know what I mean? So everything is related. I think that we are distracted and we are pulled into so many different directions that we lose track of our end goal. We are so distracted. And I think that leaders that lead efficiently and effectively today are the ones that really keep their employees at first sight, and they keep their employees like the first priority in their organizations.
Yeah, I think it was Richard Branson who said, is that if you the most important customer in your business is your staff.
Absolutely.
And you treat your staff like you perfect customers, you'll never have to worry about customers, because you know it all works. I really like what you've said there. I have to be honest, and I think there's often a disconnect between what happens upstairs to what's happening on the floor, if you like. And one of the privileges of running your own business is that you get to choose the values of the people that you work with. And I think that's really important, because you're right. The 25, 30, 35-year-olds now are taking that entrepreneurial mindset into the corporate world. I get to listen to my wife doing recruitment interviews for her business, and not all the time, but occasionally. And the questions I'm hearing her answer are not how much money is it going to pay. They're asking, not how much holiday do I get? What are the benefits? These people are starting to ask things like, well, why does the organization exist? What are you trying to do? What are your goals for the next 5 years? They're really interested in the bigger picture, rather than just having their head down and doing, their small part of it, because it matters. It really, they're going into, it's a public body, and it matters. They want to know that the work they're doing has an impact. And I see it in my business. I see it in other people's businesses. even if it's a micro business with just 2 or 3, employees, or even freelancers, the people that stay are those that are interested in the values that the business owner has and what they're trying to do. And I think you're right, we don't spend enough time sharing that message and that mission with the people that work with us and our team. It'll be a bit like a football manager getting annoyed at his team for not performing when the team doesn't know what they're trying to win. Is our priority the league? Is our priority the cup? You've got to have an end goal in mind, and you have to share it. I 100% agree on that.
And on that, also, why your position in the field is important.
Yes.
Why that position is important. Why you being 3 meters behind or 3 meters ahead is important. Why you paying attention of that other person in the field, maybe in your own team or on your own team or in the opposite team, is important. You see, is how you are able to communicate all those things, to your team, so that they really become a crucial part, and they understand the consequences, they understand the implications of everything that they do.
Yeah.
Because that's typically, again, we take so many things for granted all the time. I have employees, you have employees, and obviously we always make an effort to, I think that onboarding an employee never ends. You're always onboarding an employee.
Yeah. Can't be a 3-week period, can it? Yeah.
Always. There's always, because you always want them to do a better job. You always want them to embrace new things. Sometimes you take for granted, no, they already know how to do this, but in reality, they don't. And the more time you spend with them, the more you're trying to, you actually communicate with them and tell them, hey, we're doing this because of that. And the reason why we're making these changes are those. And the consequences of doing this are that. And we expect that to happen, these kind of things. So I think it's important. That's why, we go back to communication and the leadership style of the leader of the organization.
Yeah, it's really important. Angel, I want to just take you back a little minute to when you were talking about the sort of 2 challenges you've seen consistently, and you talked about this communication challenge. But the first thing was about the person, and we at the Business Clubhouse, we pride ourselves, I guess, on not really caring about the business that we work with or the businesses we work with, but about the people who run those businesses. We are all about the leader, about the owner of that business, and helping them be the best version of themselves. And you said a really interesting term, which was, I think it was something like, I'd have to listen back, but I can't listen back while I'm recording. But it was something about helping them understand who they need to be rather than what they need to be.
Yeah.
So could you expand on that a little bit more? What do you mean by, I think I understand, but what do you mean by who they need to become?
When you analyze the disengagement of the organizations today, you immediately realize that there's something which is not the right thing, right? Again, it's not fair to keep your employees accountable if you have not, right? If they're not engaged, honestly, right? So yeah, this is a two-way street, and there's always this I would say dichotomy between doing and being, right? Doing and being, doing and being. I think that in the future, the leaders are going to be more or they're going to be more on a beers than doers, much more, because they will have to be showing all the time to the rest of the organization that they are really doing what the company is standing up for, much more than before. And I think that also happens to us as again, this new world that we are creating, because I really believe that right now we are creating a new world. And with everything that we do ourselves and we do with our clients, we are creating a new world. And in this new world, it's not about your to-do list. It's not about, honestly, it's not even about the goals. It's about who you are being every single day when you are interacting with the rest of the people in the organization. That's what I meant, what I said before, because we tend to be entrenched on again, the do. So this task and this other task and this other task and this other task. But are you really being yourself all the time while doing those things? Are you emphasizing your being best versus your do? You know, there's a good friend of mine who just actually launched, who's finalizing the launch of a book, and it's called Being Leadership. Being Leadership, and he exactly he speaks to that. He exactly speaks to that, which is the world and what the people need. I wouldn't say even the world. What the people need inside an organization is to know and to see who the leader really is, how that leader, who he or she obviously, how those leaders, how they are being every single day in front of the different decisions they have to make every single day. And let me tell you an example. Regardless of what's going on in the world, last year here in Dallas, Texas, where I am, I was still having face-to-face meetings with business executives, with C-level executives last year. Literally every single week, I would meet at least one C-level executive, regardless of the lockdowns, regardless, again, everybody was standing at a different position. And obviously, again, we come from a place of building bridges, not of burning bridges. So obviously we have to, or I had to respect obviously where everybody was. But what I was trying to say is every single leader that I met last year was talking about different kinds of organizations. And the best organizations last year, the ones that are going to be thriving more in the coming year, were the ones that besides and despite of the restrictions, they were actually growing in the sense that they were training their employees. Can you imagine investing in training your employees in the toughest year in the last probably 20 or 30 years of history of your business? Why? Why would they do that? Because it was the perfect time to make sure that you could give the additional skills to your labor force, right? So that they could outperform their previous performances moving forward. And just last week, I don't know if it was from Ernst & Young or from who else, or Capgemini, one of the two organizations, they published a very interesting study that were saying that 70-something% of the CEOs, the main concern they have with their teams, the entire organization, is how are we going to give them additional skills? The upskill, how to upskill their teams. That's the number one concern. Isn't it funny that last year it was already seeing that the best organizations were already preparing their employees instead of de-investing their employees, they were investing more in their employees to make sure that, whatever comes next, our employees are going to be more engaged and more ready to embrace anything, whatever that anything is. Isn't it amazing, Ash?
I think it takes a brave leader to do that.
Absolutely.
And as you said, everybody has their own position on things, and some people will, I've seen people completely hunker down. I've seen people invest, take out grants, take out loans, and really push their businesses and train themselves, invest in themselves, invest in their staff, invest in new equipment. And it's felt really scary, but they're now really reaping the benefits of that because they're still standing and they've grown and they have a team that can actually deliver expanded opportunities and all the rest of it. So
totally.
But I think for every one of those businesses, there's going to be a business that just hid, and that's a choice that people make, I guess. And it's hard to, when I know what we did. And it's really hard to kind of impose your own values on anybody else because everybody ultimately gets to make their own choice, their own decision. Absolutely. I'm really interested to ask you a question about the non-profit, the charitable work that you do with the kids, please, because on a very small scale, we clearly share some similar values there. So there's a local secondary school, high school close to me, and I spent some time there as what we call an enterprise advisor. So my job is to connect the businesses in the area to the students and the young people at the school, And we bring speakers in, and we train them on things like interview skills. And I have a separate podcast on interview skills for 16 to 18-year-olds. And I worked in my previous life as a tennis coach. I spent hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands of hours working with young people and training them and developing them and giving them business skills and mentoring skills and training skills and giving them an opportunity to earn money and go to university and be able to coach tennis and stuff like that and turn them into mini leaders. So I'm fascinated to know how this came about and how it works and what's your ultimate goal for it as well. You know, talking, so you don't get distracted. You know, I'm going to ask you what the goal is.
Oh, yeah. No. I mean, the main goal is obviously to change the landscape of poverty in Latin America. That's the goal. That's the main goal. Okay. So, and when I started, when I literally had a spiritual epiphany that allowed me to see that I had to do this. Okay. And the main question I had in my mind after that experience was, if it's not me, who can do this? If not me, who? If not me, who?
Yeah.
You know, and the reason why I started to do this, besides the spiritual epiphany, I think that we are continuously in our lives preparing for the next thing in our lives every single time. So all my past, I mean, we created Wisdom for Kids in 2017. That spiritual experience I was just mentioning happened in 2015. And I had lived in Latin America since 2001. And every single time I was going to help all those companies I told you about, every time I was going to meet with those CEOs, general managers, C-level executives of large corporations, because I was working for corporate America, for companies, basically corporate companies from North America or Europe, but still me deployed in Latin America. Every single time I was going to talk to these business leaders to close business, right, to help them with the growth of their businesses. Every single time I was going to places where those manufacturing plants where I was going to help them. Every single time outside those manufacturing plants, obviously, I found a lot of poverty. If you have ever been in Latin America, even if you have been to those nice, holiday vacation resorts, it doesn't matter. I'm sure that you have seen poverty. I'm sure you have been exposed to those, that live in poverty, unfortunately. So me working in Latin America for more than 10 years and living personally for 10 years, allow me to see poverty next to the very highly influential people all the time. And those kids would come to me before I would go inside those manufacturing plants. They would come to me and say, "Hey, senor, can you buy some candies from us? Can you buy a bottle of water? Can you help? Or can we help you with your car? Can we keep your car safe while you are inside the plant? Can you give me some pesos? And obviously I would always say yes. And it was what an incredible thing to see the poorest people, and in 5 minutes be with the richest people in the area all the time. And that happened to me consistently. It doesn't matter which country. So that's why eventually one day all those images came to me, and I said, I mean, who else is more prepared and ready to connect with those high-level executives in all those corporations, and at the same time, being able to, understand what those kids do. So while I was in corporate America, very often I was not always helping CEOs, but I very often I was using, not only selling directly to those CEOs or C-level executives, but I was also what is called like indirect sales models, which means we were using distribution channels. We were using, partnership programs, these kind of things. So I was always, mentoring, coaching, consulting for those business owners of those, distributors that were helping us to develop our businesses. So I had always training those companies to be more and more successful. So if you see this, I had always been helping the CEOs and having contacts and developing these relationships with them. I had always been training, entrepreneurs to become, and I had great success stories of, companies going from 2 employees to 40 employees in 2-3 years time. And at the same time, seeing so much poverty. So I had this experience in 2015, and then I reached out to a business partner in Mexico and I said, "Hey, why don't we create this?" And why don't we create, Wisdom for Kids in order to help underprivileged kids in Latin America become entrepreneurs using their local resources? And then we spend a couple of years having a couple of PhD students developing the workshop, because knowing that there's 81 million kids in Latin America that live in poverty, I mean, you have a lot of things to do, right? You are already stressed just thinking about it, right? So we said, okay, so how can we do this in a way in which we change the life of every single kid as soon as we meet with those kids, regardless of, what our bandwidth is? Every single time we reach out to them, we start changing their lives forever. Okay, so that's why I said before, I mean, what's our goal? Our goal is to make the strongest footprint possible in Latin America. Obviously, unfortunately, last year didn't help because we couldn't move, literally, and even our local volunteers couldn't see the kids for a year. They have not been able to see the kids for a year. It's crazy, but it is what it is. So we're right now thinking, obviously, or we have been already thinking for the first months this year, how are we going to continue doing this, knowing that there's going to be restrictions for us to move? So us being able to onboard and to recruit more, volunteers has become more and more critical for us and for our future.
Sure. I think it's an amazing thing what you're doing, and your numbers there are incredible, because you're talking about more young people, more children being in poverty than there is the population of the whole of the UK.
Yeah.
When you look at it
Just
like
imagine.
that is a lot of children, a lot of. I heartily wish you well with that, and I know from your enthusiasm that you'll set your mind to this and it'll happen. Those kids are have a real opportunity with what you're doing to better themselves and to be more than they are now, and that's the important thing, isn't it? Is
exactly. How do you help them shift their mindset a little bit so that they see that there's opportunities where they might not see them today? Yeah. That's the most important thing.
And opportunity is the really key word, because some of them are living in environments, and I think this is relative also to many of the business owners I speak to, is that they're so entrenched in what they're doing, they're so distracted, to use your words, they're so distracted by everything that's going on, they don't see the opportunity. So for these children, poverty is the distraction, and for business owners, what they have to do, or they feel they have to do every day, is the distraction. And when you have the opportunity, or you're given the opportunity to change your mindset so that you can see what opportunity there is and make better or different decisions to improve, whether it's your business or your life, then I think that's a wonderful place to be. You talked about one of your values, your number one value. If you're going to work with somebody, they have to want to change. They have to want to see the opportunity, because people get opportunities sometimes, don't they? They get opportunities and they choose not to see them. Isn't it funny that
sometimes I tell them, you have to slow down, my friend. You have to slow down. Yeah. How do you tell, a $1 billion company CEO to slow down, when in reality it's so obvious that they have to slow down. They have to slow down. You have to slow down to see. You have to slow down to see. Yeah. You have to slow down to see.
And the slower you go, the faster you build. It's weird. It's one of those things, isn't it? It's great. Angel, I have one more question for you, if that's okay. So I asked this question of every guest that we have, and we get some really interesting answers. No pressure, obviously, but I'm expecting something really cool.
Fingers crossed.
Oh dear. So yeah, the question's really simple. If you could wave a magic wand and or invent time travel and go back and visit Angel Rebo the day before, the hour before he was going to start his very first business, and you have all this knowledge and experience that you have now, what's the message you would give Angel Rebo? That version of yourself back then.
Take more risks. Take more risks.
Great answer.
Take more risks, because very humbly speaking, everything that I have explained about myself and everything, people say wow, and you say wow, right? But when you're living it, you don't realize. You just live your life. You're just moving. You're just going forward, right? It's until you stop that you realize what you have done before. But even though I did the exercise and I stopped and I counted my blessings and everything, I realized that I could have done so much more. I could have done so much more. I played conservative so many times. And there's those, preconceived moral, ethical ideas that, no, you shouldn't do this, or you have to play safe. And what is safe? These kind of things. So I was, because of who I am, how I conduct myself, I was always, open. No, I was always offered opportunities, but I have to say, I've refused most of them. Regardless of the excitement of everything that I've told you and explained to you, there's so many other opportunities I've refused, right? And so I would definitely tell my little angel, hey, little angel, whenever you are offered an opportunity, or whenever you're running too fast, stop and be open to opportunities. And when you're analyzing those opportunities, put your heart first, as opposed to your mind. Go inside your heart and ask your question. It's not if I have to take that opportunity or that risk, is how can I take it? How can I take that risk? How can I take it? How can I take this additional opportunity? How can I embrace this other pathway that is being open in front of me? That's definitely what I would like to tell my younger me, the younger angel. That's definitely it. No doubt.
Wonderful advice. And if not me, who? As you said, I love that. Yeah, that's really, really cool. You've been listening to the Business Clubhouse production of Hitting the Wall podcast with the wonderful Angel Rebot. Angel, I have really, really enjoyed chatting to you today, learning from you. I've got a huge smile on my face because of your enthusiasm for life,
Thank you.
Business and children as well. I think what you're doing there is remarkable and wonderful, and I really, really wish you well with it. And I hope it brings, it comes to a place where you look back on when you started it and you go, do you know what? I took those risks for the right reasons, and all these children have benefited from it. That would be, that would be my hope for you.
Absolutely.
I guess,
Bang on.
Thank you so much for coming on. Is there, if people want to reach out to you, connect, is there a simple way to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. You will see, or everybody, will see that I'm very active online. You can go to any social media outlet. I'm very, very active there. Being LinkedIn, the one in which I'm the most active, and either my team or myself will always answer to all the messages. But I'm going to share my personal email address, so that you can reach out to me easily. Again, it's very easy. My email address is very easy. It's Angel, ANGEL, at angelrebot.com. Rebot is my last name, and it's 4 letters, R-I-B as in boy, O. Angel at angelrebot.com. And it's been a real pleasure to be here, Ash. And obviously, thank you, everybody who's been listening or watching our conversation today.
It's been brilliant. It's been great fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Hitting the Wall podcast with me, Ash Taylor. This podcast is produced by the Business Clubhouse. The Business Clubhouse is a great community of business owners who share ideas, challenge and support each other to run better businesses for themselves and their families. If you'd like to grow your business with the right people around you and with the right tools to help you, visit thebusinessclubhouse.co.uk, where you can request a complimentary copy of the best-selling Hitting the Wall.